Attention all grill masters and backyard barbecue enthusiasts. Lynn's has everything you need to make your 4th of July cookout a success. From sizzling certified Angus beef steaks and mouth-watering burgers to fresh cut fruit and all the condiments you desire, we have you covered. Browse our weekly ad for celebratory savings like 39 cents per pound seedless watermelon through July 4th and shop online at lynsgrocery.com for extra convenience. Lynn's, where delicious begins.
Hello, and welcome to the Everyday Fi podcast, the show that explores stories of everyday people in the financial independence community. Today on the show, I'm chatting with Devon, and this was one of my favorite episodes to record to date. No offense to anybody else who's been on here, but Devon is a very impressive young man. He's a 22-year-old college student on his way to financial independence, and he discovered the power of FI at 21 and saved $25,000 in his first year. He's passionate about spreading the ethos of financial independence, increasing financial literacy, sharing his experiences, and inspiring others to chase their freedom by the day, as he calls it, while enjoying their individual journeys. In this episode, we chat about how his parents instilled in him a sense of independence and autonomy, his experience in the military and educating others about the FI movement, his goal of reaching $150,000 by the time he graduates, and so much more. Tune in to hear his story. Hello and welcome. Thank you for listening, everybody. Today I am going to be talking with Devon. And Devon was actually on the Choose FI podcast not too long ago. I believe his episode came out in August, so you probably will recognize his voice. I'm lucky because I met Devon personally at the Fire in Vegas event back in April. We did both sit in the front row and got all the drama, all of the fun, all of the spittle that came from Alan Donegan. Just kidding, Alan. Welcome, Devon, to the show. And why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you, where you're from, your family, your current job, career, anything you want to share about yourself.
Sounds good. My name is Devon, and I'm from Minneapolis, Minnesota. I'm currently a college student. I'm 22 years old, and I'm studying mechanical engineering at the University of Minnesota. I graduate this December, so I'm hoping to land my first role in the medical device industry here in the Twin Cities coming months.
That's so awesome. I think one thing that impressed us a lot at the Fire in Vegas event was that you are coming to FI so young, and it impressed us and, of course, made us all very jealous. My first question is, why did you pick mechanical engineering and the medical device field?
So mechanical engineering, I've been on that path since middle school. So I went to the STEM middle school. It was a magnet program. So we had all types of STEM classes, and I'm willing to bet it originally stemmed from type of engineers make the most money, Google search. And then I found mechanical engineering. I've always been hands-on, and I have stuck to that decision I made in 6th grade since. I never considered anything else. You could ask me back then, what do you get when you grow up? And I was a mechanical engineer. And here I am about to graduate. And then with medical technology, this kind of came after my last summer internship. Last summer, I was a fiber optics test engineer, and I wasn't quite having the impact that I wanted to have. I made a good impact on the bottom line, but that wasn't necessarily as fulfilling as I wanted my career to be. So then I talked with one of my friends, and she did the internship here in Twin Cities electronic, and she was talking about that experience. And then I decided to look into the industry a little bit more, and I did a whole bunch of informational interviews with a whole bunch of industry professionals in the area and determined that medical device industry would be interesting and a place where I can make an impact.
Yeah, that's amazing that you knew what you wanted to be in 6th grade. I think if you would ask anyone else, they'd be like, I want to be a cowboy or an astronaut or a clown. I mean, astronaut, you could obviously do that, but I wanted to be an artist. I wanted to be the next famous Pablo Picasso. That did not happen. And I changed my careers a lot. So you're very lucky that you knew exactly what you wanted to do. And it's cool that you're going into medical technology. I think that's really awesome that you really want to make an impact. And I mean, I know a couple people who are mechanical engineers too, who they tried one thing and then were like, actually, I want to try something else. So it's also one of those things that even if you start out in the medical field and you're like, maybe not for me, it's one of those things that you can pivot because you have this amazing skill set that you're going to gain from this education. So if you're from Minneapolis and you're going to the University of Minnesota, did you choose that university based on the fact that you're from Minnesota and it was cheaper to go there? Or was it also the best school for mechanical engineering? Like, what made you choose this school?
I ended up choosing the University of Minnesota because, much like my decision to pursue mechanical engineering, I'm dead set in my decisions. And when I came onto campus for the first time, when I was like critically looking at colleges and campuses, it was, I think, the third one that I put on. I was like, yep, this is where I'm going to school. And that's how that decision was made.
So was it like a feeling, or was it like, okay, this checks all my boxes? Like, I'm trying to understand if it was more of an emotional decision or was it more of a practical, logical decision?
More emotional, I'd say. I just liked the vibe and atmosphere. It's a pretty gorgeous campus, in my opinion. If you look at the University of Minnesota, Akron Memorial Union Hall area, it's looks like kind of Harry Potter-esque. So it's a very pretty school. So I like that.
Yeah, that would have solidified my decision too if it looked like the Harry Potter campus. No, I love that because some people think that engineers are just all logical thinking. And I love that you're like, no, I'm going to balance this with also being emotional and like leaning into that and leaning into making decisions based on how I feel about something. So I actually really love that. And the funny thing is it's like also a really good decision at the same time. So it just shows that going with your gut and your emotions can steer you in the right direction. So now we're going to get in the nitty gritty. I want to dive into your money story a little bit. And because you're younger, you're going to definitely remember more. What I want to know is, what is one of your earliest money memories?
So one of my earliest money memories was in the first grade. So you're correct. I remember it back then. And back in the first grade, I was a bit of a problem child, not because it's just because I wouldn't focus on what the teacher was saying, because I wasn't like engaged by the material. It was too easy for me. Like I would get in trouble for reading under my desk or just not paying attention, daydreaming in class. But I eventually got put on like this star chart. So like if I behaved during the day, I'd get a star. And to incentivize me to pay attention, my parents decided that I would get a quarter every day. I got a star by a jar of quarters. And then there's one day where I didn't get a star. I made the foolish decision to doctor my star chart. I put a star on it myself. And my teacher saw that and I told my parents, and then I lost all of my quarters from a decision that I made. And that was one of my earlier money memories. I was also raised up like it's my money. I can do what I want with it. So it was a little of an experience to lose all.
Yeah, really. I mean, that was such an interesting system though. I really like that. And it's good to know that like your attention issues were more just you needed some motivation and it wasn't something deeper than that. I will say that I also read under the desk. I read Animorphs in 5th grade all the time, and I was definitely teased for doing that. And my teacher was so annoyed. But that was not because of intention. That was because the class was boring and the Animorphs books were really awesome. Anyway, if anybody is a millennial, they'll know what the Animorphs books are. So I guess, what do you think you took away from that earlier lesson?
I was lucky in the fact that it didn't like scar me money emotional wise too much, but it did make me realize like from a young age, my parents always raised me up to realize like my actions have consequences, and that like I can choose my actions, therefore I can determine the outcomes. Like my dad was in the military as well. Like you play stupid games, you get stupid prizes. Played a stupid game by putting the star on my chart. I got a stupid prize by losing all my quarters. It was just the idea that like I had a little bit of agency in my life, even at that age, was starting to form.
Yeah, that's pretty good. And did you know that that would be the repercussion for adding a star, or did you learn that that was the consequence after you added the star?
Me and my infinite wisdom at first grade thought nobody would be the wiser. So I had no idea what the consequences would be.
Yeah. And the reason why I say that is like, as adults, sometimes we either know or don't know what the consequences are. And I wonder if knowing versus not knowing affects our decisions. If you know that eating a certain food is going to upset your stomach because you have an intolerance, you're probably less likely to do it than if you didn't know and you're just eating an unhealthy food and you know that it maybe might not make you feel good, but you still do it anyway. You see what I'm saying? Like, I just find that really interesting. Like, I wonder if there's some sort of parallel there to like knowing versus not knowing the consequences. That's also a really cool money lesson to learn that I think even parents listening to this and even myself, like thinking as a potential parent one day, I'm totally going to use this. And not just like as a system of my kids not paying attention, but just like from the get-go, like, hey, the better you do, the more you get rewarded. And then when you make mistakes, there are consequences.
You got to be a little bit careful with it too, because it could be you put them in the not the type A personality, but the like golden child personality, where like maybe all their work comes from like their achievements, accomplishments. So when they don't succeed, they get a lot of burnout. Happens to a lot of like star children who were like really, really good in high school just because everything came so easy to them, and then they never learned to like study or do any of that, and then they get to college, and college hits them like a ton of bricks, which is another. But there's like finding the balance between you did good and are going to be rewarded for it. Even if you did get the outcome you wanted, you still have value and you did the best you could.
That is an excellent point. And I'm so glad that you brought that up because that is absolutely true. I just went to the default millennial mindset of your worth is tied to your productivity. So we should teach kids that because that's what we were taught when we were kids too. So I just saw it as like all positive because we also had star charts. Like I think everybody in class had star charts when I was a kid. And yeah, I got rewarded for getting good grades. I would get like $5 for every A or something like that, or $2 for every B. And then when I would get a C, I would get grounded until the next report card. There was a lot of discipline. But like you said, there has to be a balance because it can't just be a free for all because you do need to teach kids boundaries and discipline because kids aren't the best at that. I think there is a way to say, just because you didn't do good this time does not mean you are not worthy. I'm very curious about how your parents talked about money and if you remember any conversations, like how they talked about money between themselves, with you or your siblings or other family members. Do you remember anything about that?
You never truly talked about money per se, but I always have the sense that work to them was something that they had to do, not got to do. And as a result of that, like the things me and my sister were able to do when my parents brought us on trips and we got to do other things. We were in dance all the way through, like from elementary school to high school. And that's not cost a pretty penny. So we're always taught to be very thankful for like the money that we did have and things that we got to do. And then again, like my parents always talk about like my money is my money and I get to spend it how I choose. And they gave me agency over that as well.
Would you categorize your parents as like upper class, middle class, lower class, somewhere in between?
I would say middle to upper middle class. My mom is a nurse practitioner and then my dad worked for MnDOT for the majority of my childhood.
It sounds like they already had like a good, secure position to be able to teach you guys some pretty good money lessons. How did your childhood experiences with money shape your philosophy as a young adult? I know it wasn't that long ago that you were living at home and and you're now living on campus somewhere, but how are those experiences going to shape your philosophy now and potentially in the future?
I guess my parents always fostered like a sense of agency in my decisions and like over my life. And that's definitely carried through. They made me really think about like if I do this, then this will happen because of this. And then like think of all the ins and outs. Like I got around middle school, I had to choose between being in dance and being karate. I was in both. But in order to like excel in one of them, I would have to give up the other. And I got to make that decision myself. Got my black belt and I was, I think 12 or 13. I was like me truly pursuing karate or like truly diving into dance. And then I remember a really long walk with my mom where we just talked about the ins and outs. That philosophy of like having agency over my life and my decisions produce the outcomes that happened in my life is something they definitely instilled in me. And then I was also pretty much most of my childhood, I knew that I would be paying for college myself. So I guess that kind of made me a little bit debt averse. That was part of the decision why I joined the military, as well as just serving my country. I come from a military family and it was just all wrapped up in a nice package. So that was the decision I decided to go with.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. What branch of the military are you in?
I'm a sergeant in the Minnesota National Guard. You have to say that I do not represent the DoD in any way or any official capacity.
He does not represent the DoD in any way on this show, y'all. Going back to having agency, I loved what you said about that your parents taught you that your decisions are what make your life what it is. Because I recently had an interaction on the internet, because it's the internet, with somebody who thought the complete opposite, that everything happened to them, that they had no agency and no control. And they were so miserable. And nothing I said could make them think that they had any sort of agency or ownership over their life. And it was almost like they enjoyed being a victim. And I love what you're saying here, because you're like, no, we all have agency and control and ownership over our own lives. Now, of course, there's always outside factors that come into play, but the way that we decide for ourselves how to react to that is what makes our life what it is, right? Everybody's going to react differently to different things. Like you said, you're debt averse because you grew up knowing that you were going to pay for college out of your own pocket. And whereas if somebody talked to me about debt for college, like I had to pay for part of my college too. I didn't care. I was like, oh, this is just what you do. And that was the way that I dealt with the same information. And it's just interesting how people deal with it differently. And it's one of those things where I regret the amount of debt that I took out, but I don't regret the degree that I got or the experience that it gave me. So it's a really interesting conundrum, because the debt itself definitely made my life harder in some ways, because I couldn't do the kind of things that I wanted to do earlier in life. I had to wait because I had so much debt, because I got a master's degree and lived in New York City. And lived on my loans in New York City and didn't have a job for the first year and a half. And it's one of those things that, like, if you can learn this early to own your decisions, I don't feel like I'm a victim to my debt. It was my decision to take the debt out. Now, I do feel victim to the fact that the loans capitalized when I started paying on them. So a bunch of the interest went onto the principal. I didn't have any control over that. And that I do feel victim of, but I took control of that by refinancing to a lower interest rate. And so that was the way that I took control. And anyway, suffice to say, I think everybody can learn from your philosophy of you have complete ownership over your life, no matter what things come at you. So I am really curious how you found the financial independence movement, because it seems like you were definitely the type who would be attracted to something like this. But I'd love to know the actual story of how you came to find this movement and what attracted you to this specific type of personal finance.
So I'd always thought that, like, in my head, like when I was a kid, like I'm very retired. It's I'm 40 and I'm just gonna go have fun and do whatever I want type mentality when I was a child. But I never really had the know-how or the wherewithal to, like, realize that reality. And then last summer during my internship, I got really bored of listening to music in my cubicle, which says a lot about me, because I've listened, there's been years where I've listened to like 40 to 50 days worth of music, and it's added up to days. And it was like week 2 or 3 and I got bored of my music. So I tried to find a podcast, and they would add it that podcast was Choose It By. And then I started listening to that in my cubicle. And there was one episode, I think it was with Joe Cracker, where they talked about the Roth conversion ladder and how you could put all of your money in pre-tax into a 401k, roll it over to your Roth and take it out tax-free. And that just opened up the whole door, like the floodgates. And I, in the past year, I've listened to all 600 something episodes of Choose It.
Yeah, it is a very bingeable show. And I remember the Go Curry Cracker episode. I thought he was talking about tax optimization, and then it was the mad scientist who talked about the Roth conversion ladder. But I bet Go Curry Cracker probably talked about the same thing, because that's just a topic in our community that everybody loves to talk about. So, and the reason why I'm saying this is because I want to go find those episodes and link them. So I'm going to link both the Go Curry Cracker one and the Mad Scientist, like the earlier one, because he's been on several times on the Choose Fi. But I think Go Curry Cracker's only been on once. Brad, you need to get him on again if he's only been on once. So I will link those episodes in the show notes, because Those early episodes of Choose FI, by the way, are really where all those action items are. So it's one of those where I want to go and repeat listen to like the first 100 and be like, okay, wait, am I still on the correct path? Am I still doing the things that they talked about back in freaking 2017 and 2018? And has anything changed now that COVID hit? I will link those in the show notes.
It looks like you're both right. It's episode 18, Go Curry Cracker, Apple Beans and Losses, and the Rock Conversion Pattern.
Aha. Okay. Episode 18 coming to you in the show notes. Cool. Okay. So what attracted you specifically to the FIRE movement? I know you said like when you were a kid, you're like, I'm just going to retire at 40 and do whatever I want, but why?
So how my parents raised me to see that my actions like have consequences, but not even consequences. My actions have results. And based on the actions, those results would change. I've always been like wanting to accumulate as many options as possible. Like I can take as many different routes and end up in different places or stay placed based on different decisions. And I think that's my big like why of FI. I like the optionality. I want to be able to do what I want, whatever I want, and wherever I want to do it. And I feel like money is a tool to get you there. It's not to buy you happiness, but it can buy you options that can make you happier.
Yeah, that makes sense. And what kind of options are you envisioning for yourself? And the reason why I'm asking is I like to get very specific when people are talking about their why of FI, because I think that, first of all, it's really interesting. I love hearing everybody's different whys. And second of all, I feel like it can really drive home the desire to reach that goal. And personally, I like to repeat my specific why of FI. Like I literally envision here's the outcome that I would like to do one day. So for example, I would like to reach financial independence so that I could work part-time and stay home with my child and raise my child together with my partner who also works for part-time. So that's one. Two is we build a home that's completely ours, customized to ours on land, like 10 acres of land, and have a little tiny homestead, and it just is ours. And then the third one is like being able to take a year off and go travel, and either in a van or a camper or over in Europe with the kids, with the husband, whatever. And so those are all the different options that I am saving for. That might happen, might not happen. I don't know. But like, you see how they're very specific. And so I'm very curious what your specific options are for your life that you envision for yourself.
Right now, I'm still in more of a general sense because I am young and do have time to figure it out. But one of my favorite quotes is by Seneca, and it's like, luck is what happens with preparation meets opportunity. And like, for example, like me going to Vegas, not many college students can drop everything on a moment's notice and fly to Vegas and have the funds to do that themselves and have little to no monetary impact on what's going on in their life. And that was an opportunity that was afforded to me by the fact that I had taken on ethos of choose a buy and then saving and striving towards my goals and earning money, increasing my income. I was able to take that opportunity. Like I do have some ideas of what I want my future life to look like, but I might not even have those ideas yet. I know if I prepare, I might have the opportunity to take them. Whereas if I didn't prepare, I wouldn't have them giving me thought of those ideas.
Yeah, for sure. And so I'm going to dig a little bit more because I want to know if you were to reach your financial independence number tomorrow, like say you, I don't know, won the lottery or something and you have $40 million, what would you do?
I would have not a tiny house, but not a big house. It would be somewhere in the middle, like maybe 2, 3 bed, 2 baths, and then a yard that's like built for entertainment, like a really nice fire pit, grill, all that stuff. Because I want all my friends and family, and I love spending time with them. That's what lights me up. And I want a house that's conducive to that. I'm about to graduate, so I can get back into my hobbies, taking a backseat to my studies. I'd want to be able to have a fishing boat so I can continue fishing. I'd want land up north in Minnesota where I could go hunt and shoot with my friends. I'd want to be able to there's a very big lake culture in Minnesota where the land is 10,000 lakes, and there's a lot of very premium lakes in Minnesota. And I'd want to be on one of those premium lakes. And then I want to be able like old sporty, when I want to retire, well, not retire, be financially independent. I still want to have a career that is like fulfilling and where I can make an impact.
Yeah, that's amazing. So it sounds like you would still want to go ahead with the mechanical engineering position and jobs and still work, even if you had $40 million or $4 million, whatever your fine number is. That's exactly what I wanted to know. Like, you know exactly what you would do tomorrow if you reached financial independence. And it's that specificity that is beautiful and is what motivates all of us to keep going when sometimes this journey can be a little hard, especially when like maybe your savings rate has to go down because a big expense comes up and then it feels a little bit deflating. I speak from personal example here. My house is 100 years old and she's an old lady and she needs a lot of work, and the siding on one side is peeling away because it's old. And I had somebody come and quote me to paint the whole exterior for $30,000. However, I just learned that that's ridiculous. And one other company was like, no, it should only be $6,000. So that made me feel a little bit better. But like stuff like that, like my savings rate is now down to, I think, about 19% because, and by savings rate, I mean savings rate for my future, because now I have to sock money away to save up for this big expense. And so it's times like that when sometimes, I don't know about you, but sometimes I feel like, why even bother? Why not just keep it at this percentage and just live my life the way that I want to and just go buy the new dress or the 10 massages a month or whatever and just forget about this whole FI thing. Like, I'm like, no, because I have this vision, this very specific thing or things that I know that I want to do. And the only way I can do it is by reaching financial independence.
One of my goals is to be able to retire my parents. Like that's another one of my early money stories. When I was a very small child, I was probably like 5 or 6. My dad would always joke around and ask me for $100 because, like I said, I saved up money and like my money is my money. But he would be like, "Give me $100, please, loan me $100." And I'd say, "No, I'm going to take care of you when you're old." But that was what I said when I was a kid, and we'll make it up. So if I had $40 million tomorrow, I'd retire my parents, make sure I could.
That's really cool. Would you do something like, would you bring them into your home that you said that you wanted to build and have multifamily style living situation?
It would probably be like a guest house, I would say, like a little bit of separation, or like them be in roughly the same area or neighborhood. Like I'd love to like build like little development with just my friends and family. We all have our own little houses and hang out, do all that fun stuff together.
Yeah, that's really cool. Like a little family commune type of thing. Speaking of commune, I don't know if you saw this. The Camp FI newsletter came out the other day, and there is a FI commune. I don't know what else to call it, or neighborhood that they're building in Georgia. Did you read about this at all?
Not at all.
Yeah. So I forget which city in Georgia it is, but it looks really interesting. Like they're trying to sell some homes there. And so if anybody's interested in joining a financial independence commune and is okay with living in Georgia, check it out. Camp FI newsletter came out and talked about it. I'm sure if you Googled FI commune in Georgia, it'd probably come up. It looks really interesting. But yeah, I would love to do the same thing where I have only my favorite people living all in the same neighborhood right near each other. So we can just like walk to each other's houses, but only my favorite people.
Get hyped with the new Pizza Hut My Box range. With 4 customizable My Box options for endless combos. That's bussin'. Order one My Box today and make it yours. Pizza or melts? That's your call. Sides? You can have 2 or a drink. So play by your rules. Set your terms and your conditions to match all cravings. New Pizza Hut My Box range. Your terms, your conditions. Pizza Hut. Order today.
Macy's has all of your Grill Master essentials for Father's Day. Stop by to get our hand-trimmed chicken breast and certified Angus beef patties that are ready to grill, so Dad can have his favorite dinner. Make sure to browse our bakery to find the perfect no-work Father's Day treat with our decadent peanut butter bars or famous donuts. Right now, you can get boneless beef ribeye steaks for $12.99 per pound at Macy's. Shop these Father's Day essentials in-store or online at Macy's.com through June 18th. Macy's, happy shopping!
Okay, it's official. We are very much in the final sprint to Election Day. And face it, between debates, polling releases, even court appearances, it can feel exhausting, even impossible to keep up with. I'm Brad Milkey. I'm the host of Start Here, the daily podcast from ABC News. And every morning, my team and I get you caught up on the day's news in a quick, straightforward way that's easy to understand, with just enough context so you can listen, get it, and go on with your day. So, kickstart your morning. Start smart with Start Here and ABC News, because staying informed shouldn't feel overwhelming.
Okay. So what strategy are you using to reach financial independence? Are you stock investing? Are you real estate investing? Do you want to start a business? What ideas do you have?
Answer to all of those is yes. So right now I am mainly focusing on stock market. Last year I maxed out my Roth IRA for the first time, and I plan to do that every single year until I retire. As soon as I get my first full-time offer, I plan to max out my 401k, because as an engineer in a large city, I will be making considerably more money than I've ever made. And even with that $3,000 haircut, I can still have a pretty decent amount of lifestyle inflation and reap some of the rewards of what I've done over the past couple of years. I have also, over the past year, saved a little over $15,000 for a down payment on my first duplex, hoping to be a duplex in the next, hoping about the next year or two, using an FHA loan or a VA loan. And then I'm going to lead in my corporate career. Could definitely see myself doing really well in the electric device industry, making a lot of cool devices, and hopefully eventually coming back, getting my MBA and maybe being more management style. And then I'd also plan to have some type of side hustle. I'm started a blog inspired by it to make a change after by Vegas. So hopefully all the above, but we'll see where life takes me.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll definitely link to your blog. What's your blog called?
freedombytheday.com.
Oh, I love that name. That is amazing that you are able to do all of that, because when I was 22, I spent money on alcohol and food and clothes and credit card debt. So I'm really proud of you. And I actually want to ask, what advice would you give for somebody who maybe is 18 and just starting college? Because, and I ask this in a way that's, like saving $15,000 for your first rental property and maxing out your Roth IRA. That's a good chunk of money for somebody who's also in school. How did you accomplish doing that? What kind of jobs did you get? And again, what kind of advice would you give to somebody who maybe is 4 years behind where you are now or 5 years behind where you are now?
So I'm in the very fortunate position that I actually get paid to go to school. So through the National Guard, my tuition is covered 100%. I also have scholarships that I earned in high school that were merit-based. So the way that all works out is at the start of the semester, there's a little bit of a delta between my scholarships and what the tuition is. So I pay that difference. And then at the end of the semester, I get reimbursed the entirety of the tuition. So I get to pocket my scholarship money effectively. And then that sets me up for a great financial ground game, even if I didn't find financial independence or anything like that. But once I did find financial independence, I was able to turn it up to 11 and funnel all of that money into things that would set me up for a better financial future. And my goal is to graduate with a net worth of $50,000. So, and being in engineering also has perks. Most engineering internships are paid. My first one I made $25 an hour. This summer I'm making $29.50 as an intern. And I'm in a very fortunate position to be able to make that kind of money at this age. And then I've also always worked since I was 16. I think since I've been 16, I've made at least $20,000 a year. So I just kept my nose on the grindstone and didn't have much to show for it the first 5 years. But once I turned 21, I found if I really started to show how much money I was actually making and wasting in the meanwhile.
Yeah. So let me recap. So your advice is to, if you're inclined, join the military. Second is to try and get merit-based scholarships or any scholarships while you're in high school, and to get paid internships and don't major in art history like I did, where you have unpaid internships. Yeah, that's what I did. And also listen to Choose FI.
I just say, think of like the ins and outs of all your decisions. Like you could join the military, but it comes at a cost. I had to take a gap year. One of my friends, she had to take 2. I have some people will end up getting deployed. Some people sadly lose their lives. I said this on the Choose FI podcast, but everybody gives some, and some of us will give all when we serve in the military. So it's not a decision that should be made lightly, but it is a decision that can set you up amazingly for your life if you reap all the benefits that it has to offer. And I'll just say be conscientious about your money. Don't worry about it too much because it will hopefully all come out on the wash, but you are about the major you choose. And make sure like if you are working a job that you're actually putting just a little bit away. Like for a while, I was like 10%. I just put 10% of everything that I had, put it in called it my estate fund. But just being conscientious about the money and realizing like it is easy to waste it, especially in our very like consumeristic culture and like all of your friends are going out to drink tonight, but there's ways to find a balance between the two. So just balance and conscientious. Summarize.
That's amazing. Yeah, I love all of that advice and I agree wholeheartedly with all of it, especially the military part. I have military members in my family and my dad was in the Vietnam War. So yes, it is not a light decision to make. It's very dangerous, but also from what I understand, incredibly rewarding. Do you also get deployed as the National Guard overseas or is that different?
Yes, the National Guard does get deployed. And I believe that we actually get deployed more often than the federal side of things because we can be deployed by our states. We can be deployed by the federal government. And I think it's cheaper for the federal government to mobilize us than it is to mobilize a full-time unit. Like my friend, she just got back from Kuwait, Syria, and Jordan. I have my unit, they just got back from the southwest border. They're doing border patrol. So you get both sides of the coin. Like me personally, did 2 weeks in Norway one year. I was riot police during the inauguration of Joe Biden. And then I was also riot police during the Derek Chauvin trials here in Minneapolis.
Wow, that's pretty intense being part of the riot police. But I am thankful for your service and the fact that you were part of protecting democracy, especially being part of the riot police during the inauguration. For anybody who's looking at joining the military, this is very good to know about the National Guard. And I'm actually curious how you became a sergeant already. Isn't that a pretty high up ranking? I know nothing about the rankings, but isn't that pretty high up and you're only 22? I mean, we already know that you're very impressive. I think this episode is going to be called The Most Impressive Man in Vi.
Sergeant is the second position, I guess, where you get power over others. The first would be corporal, which is essentially just a specialist that's doesn't get any more money to do the job of a sergeant. But aside from that, like just sergeant is like fifth from the bottom, but you do have a small team underneath you and you are in charge. You have authority over all junior enlisted members. So that's your privates and specialists. And then in terms of getting that this young, I feel like all of my leadership is likely throughout it. And they've seen promise to me. And if your leadership goes to bat for you, you usually end up getting more opportunities accelerate your career. And I feel like that's just been the path that I was on. I did not have to take this position, but I chose to, and I was happy to do it because it was a chance to develop some of the younger soldiers and leave an impact on their lives as well.
Yeah, that's incredible. And actually, speaking of that impact, I know that at the Fire in Vegas event, you were showing Brad, myself, and a couple other people who were all eating dinner together, a presentation that you put together for some of the members in your unit about personal finance. Can you tell us a little bit about that? What inspired you to do that? Who were you targeting with that? Have you used it so far? Was it effective?
Yes, I have used it. When you're back together in April, that was like these couple months after the first time I'd ever shown it. I think I've given that presentation 4 times now, and each time I've modified it and made it better because go off on a side tangent, then you're like, this should be a slide. So then I've used it, and I was just trying to do everything I wish somebody sat me down and told me when I was 18, because I joined the military actually when I was 17. I had to have my parents sign off on that decision. Then I left before my junior year of high school, came back to my senior year, and left again for training. But it's just all the things that I wish somebody would sit down and be like, hey, this is everything you wish you knew about money, especially money in the military, because it's even more complicated. Like we have the TSP, not 401k, and they don't really tell you much about it because there is a lot of opportunity, especially monetarily in the military. You're just not necessarily taught the best ways to use it, how to access one of your benefits. Like for me, I had a benefit that I wasn't using the first 6 semesters of school. And I went over to the VA office here at the U of M and asked them about it. And they asked me if I wanted to be back paid. So I got back paid 6 full semesters of benefits that I wasn't using, which was a great chance. So like just educating all of the younger soldiers / soldiers underneath me about things that they could do to like make their life better was my main like motivation to do this.
Yeah. And that's incredible. It's one of those things that I wish everybody had the opportunity to learn from somebody who is only a few years their senior, because I feel like when you learn from somebody who's way ahead of where you are, it's hard to relate. I found that true in the personal finance community when I hear of people who are like, I'm 32 and I have $1 million in net worth. I'm like, well, good for you. It makes me not really want to listen to them. I want to listen to the person who's $200,000 ahead of me and is the same age as me. Okay, that I can relate to a little bit more. And so I love that you're doing this because I feel like you're going to bring more people onto the personal finance journey and set them up for success because you are way more relatable to them than somebody like, I don't know, Dave Ramsey or Susie Orman or something. And it's one of those things that like, I hope you're able to scale it in some way so you can reach more people. Like if you were able to record it or I don't know, something so that you could share it with more people, I think that would be awesome. And what kind of feedback have you gotten from people about this? Not just the people who've attended it, but have you gotten any feedback from your superiors in the National Guard or anything about it?
Well, it started because we had a lot of downtime the next day and my lieutenant told me, I'm giving a presentation tomorrow. I don't care about what, just pick something. So I picked financial dependence. And then the feedback, like I popped up this first slide and it says retirement 101. I changed it now, but like one of the first questions is like, why are you talking to me about this? I am 18. And at the end of it, I had multiple people say that's the best presentation that I've ever received in the military. And we received a lot of presentations. It is a lot of death by power points frequently. So sounds very reassuring. It was like, and I think it was like kind of meat and potatoes information. Like you could take it and apply it right now and use it to benefit your life.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you to that superior officer for forcing you to create slide deck and teach people about some topic because first of all, it helped those people that you taught first. And then second of all, it looks like it lit something inside you and made you want to do more of it. So it's amazing how that one decision that was probably relatively flippant on his end has ripple effects. I love that. So what's your first slide called now? If it's not retirement 101, what's it called now?
It is now retirement / investing 101. Most everything you wish they taught you about money.
That's very catchy. I love that. How many people do you usually have for these presentations and like how often are you giving them?
So the first one was about 40 people because this was at a time when the forward detachment of my unit was down at the border and I was a part of the rear detachment. There wasn't a lot of work to be done and drills were just a long day of sitting, waiting to be released. So they wanted to fill that time with some information. And so that was the first one. And then the other one was while I was at the class to become sergeant. So while we were at DLC, we evaluated our attributes and competencies. So our character, presence, intellect, to our attributes, and then our leads develops and achieves their competencies. So I was trying to take the opportunity to like lead and develop and have presence to like boost my grades. And at the same time, help my fellow soldiers in the same way that I did before at my unit. And then I've also given it to the interns at my current internship, as well as the young engineers at my.
I love that you've been able to reach that many people in such a short amount of time because it was only April you were showing it to us, I think. So, and today is the last day of July. So that's amazing that you were able to present it. to that many people in that short amount of time. So yay, we're getting the message out there. Cool. Okay. I want to switch topics really quick to talking about your current struggles and your current wins. So what's something that you're currently struggling with that you could share with the community?
You can call it a bug or feature. The one thing about me is I'm able to just keep going, keep my nose on the grindstone and just keep on pushing along. Like, for example, this is how my year has been since January. I started school. I left school 2 weeks early. I finished that semester on the dean's list after taking my finals early and turning in my projects early. After taking a final, I drove to Fort McCoy, Wisconsin that same day and checked into BLC. I did BLC for 3 weeks. I got back on a Friday. That Tuesday, I started my internship, and that has led me to today, the end of July. So I'm able to just keep my nose on the grindstone. Oh, and just because my internship wasn't enough, I decided that I would be doing 75 hard when I got back. So I started that as well. So I would say like I struggle with just balance and how to like let off the gas a little bit and just rest and not do anything. I like to always be moving and working out or reading or doing something like rather than just being sometimes.
Yeah, my first instinct was, man, to have the energy a young 20-something would be incredible. And that's amazing that you're doing the 75 hard. So which day are you on with that? Because I think I read it. I didn't even try it. I just read it and I was like, nope.
So in the same vein of needing to find more balance and put out the gas a little bit, today would be day 51. But I decided to make transition from 75 hard to 50 days hardish. And for those that don't know, all the parameters of 75 hard, it's you drink 1 gallon of water a day. You do 2 45-minute workouts, one of which has to be outside. You follow a diet. You have to take a picture every day, and you have to read 10 pages of a nonfiction book every single day. If you miss any days, you reset. So my take on it, 50 days hard-ish, is like a shorter, more sustainable version that kind of be that like wake up call and readjust a little bit. It doesn't necessarily need to be extreme and burn out and push so hard. Like mine it's still hard-ish. So it's not too different. It's still a gallon of water a day. It's 90 minutes of activity on my watch. So it's not like I did a 45-minute workout here and a 45-minute workout outside going for a run. It's more like I spent 7 minutes stretching and then I went on a 5-mile run. It's more piecewise. And then, a diet. For me, my diet was just, I wanted to build the habit of tracking my calories. So I just did that, just tracked, which I was already, and had a relatively good intuition about what I was eating and nothing was surprising. So I just stayed with that. My goal is to bulk up and then cut back. I was just getting in the habit of truly tracking and then still read 10 pages of a book. I still take a picture every day. And then I added the caveat that you have 3 strikes.
I like that a lot better. I still probably wouldn't be able to do it. I exercise regularly. I like going to the gym and I like lifting weights, but there's no freaking way that I could do 90 minutes of it. I just don't have time. But the funny thing is I could spend this Saturday, I spent 4.5 hours deep cleaning my whole house. And I spent 2 hours out in the yard. And the only reason why I even came inside was because it got so hot that I started getting a migraine. So I had to come inside. So like stuff like that, if that counted as a workout, I would totally be able to do that. But I'm not sure it does because you're not really like working out. You're just moving. I'm personally doing Noom. It's a weight loss program and it's an app that uses behavioral mindset to try and shift the way you think about food and exercise. And so it's not there to like shame you. It's not there to be restrictive. It's there to teach you about what you're doing now and what small changes you can make to affect change for the better. And it's funny because I feel like I haven't really changed much except that like I've been on it for about 20 days now. And I paid for it up front on purpose. Like for the whole year, I even paid for the coach because I was like, if I put money into this, I'm going to use it because I'm going to feel like it's a waste if I don't. And like, it was a solid several $100s. And I've actually tracked all of my food. Now, I haven't really changed my diet that much. Like, I still eat probably more junk food than I probably should. But the funny thing is I've already lost 3 pounds. I think the fact that I'm more aware of what I'm doing, and I'm also listening to all these lessons that they have, and I have a coach, I think it's just having that mental shift where I'm just like, okay, you know what? I have this candy bar in the fridge. I'm going to eat half of it instead of all of it. Whereas before I would have just eaten all of it and not thought about it. It's interesting how these like small mindset shifts really help. And I love that tweaking things to your own, like the way that you work is awesome. I know our whole community is very much about fitness. So people in the community are probably like, whatever, Megan, get off the couch. But I am very much a couch potato. So the fact that I did anything, I'm very proud of myself. So what are your current wins right now? And I see that you wrote down that you just completed your 50 days hard-ish, which I think is funny because you tied that into like one of your struggles is not being able to just slow down, which by the way, eventually your body will force you to do it. Anybody who's listening to this, who's in their 30s is like, oh, you'll burn yourself out. Don't worry. Your body will tell you when it's done. So take advantage of the fact that you have that energy. But yeah, let's talk about your wins.
My other wins are that I am currently 1 semester away from graduating, which I am excited for. I'm graduating in 3.5 years instead of 4, which is nice and hard. Probably part of the nose on the grindstone thing. And then the other win is, we talked about my win, is that my interview on Choose About will be coming out in the coming weeks. So it'll be out by the time this podcast is out. And Brad has also asked me to do some work on the military flag presentation for the Choose a Flag Foundation. So I'm looking forward to learning more about that in the coming week. Hopefully reaching a wider audience.
That's awesome that Brad asked you to add to the Choose 5 Foundation. That's an incredible honor. I can't wait to see how that has an even bigger ripple effect. I really hope that you tell that superior officer about this ripple effect. And once this episode comes out, I'm definitely going to link your episode. So everybody will be able to go over there and listen to it. I haven't heard it yet. I'm very excited. No spoilers. I can't wait to listen. We are coming to the end of our time, but I want you to leave the audience with a life hack recommendation or learning that you found incredibly helpful. I know you've given us a lot so far, but what are some things that you'd like to leave the community with?
I wrote this sentence on you and I feel like it summarizes the majority of my ethos. Just keep learning, do hard things, eat healthy foods, stay active, don't think too much, and just take action. Summarizes the whole whirlwind of change that's been this past year of my life. But just, I don't think you can lead yourself to a stray follow that. You're going to be healthier, you're going to have more knowledge, and should be able to buy yourself more options.
I love that. Just do it, as Nike says. Thank you so much for being here. How can people find you if they'd like to reach out or talk a little bit about your military experience or whatever?
You can reach me at freedombytheday.com. That's the blog. And then I haven't gotten my fancy email address yet. So it's just freedombytheday@gmail.com.
I'll link that in the show notes. And yeah, people feel free to reach out to Devon on his blog. And then of course, this episode always has a page associated with it that has comments. So if you ever want to leave a comment, it notifies me and then I'll notify Devon. And yeah, whenever this episode comes out. So thank you so much, Devon, for being here. This was awesome. I loved talking to you.
Thank you for having me. It was good to catch up.
Thanks for listening to the Everyday 5 podcast. If you're loving the show, here are some things you can do. Number 1, subscribe in your favorite podcast player and share the show with your friends and family. Number 2, please leave a review. I'm always looking for ways to improve the show. Number 3, check out my website, everyday-fi.com, where you can listen to all the episodes and leave comments for myself and the guest. Number 4, if you're interested in sharing your own financial independence story, you can find a submission form at everyday-fi.com/podcast. And finally, number 5, join my Patreon membership for only $5 a month at patreon.com/everyday5podcast. This is a one-woman show, so every little bit counts. See you next time as we continue to go down the path to financial freedom.